Huh?
You know my...
All right,
I know.
we're live.
It said Brent Stehlik cannot be tagged on Facebook.
Oh, I wonder if I don't let
on
people...
Twitter.
Do I not let? I wonder if I've
You
got
might
something...
not, yeah.
You know what? My 1-year-old may have, like... She's tweeted things out before for me. I give her my phone to calm her down sometimes. So she may, like, change the setting on that.
That's fun.
Okay.
I'll change it if you want me to change it for her.
We can tag you on this afterwards.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, well, we're
All
live.
right, sounds good. Well, hi everyone. My name's Gioglio. I'm a junior sport business major here at Mount, and today I'm going to be talking with Brent Stehlik. This is Brent. Brent, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Brent Stehlik. I'm the Executive Vice President, Chief Revenue Officer, Cleveland Browns. 99 graduate from University of Mount Union.
So, very cool. So, we're just going to start off today to talk a little bit about, tell me about your experience here at Mount and just kind of how that got you ready for your career in sports.
Yeah, so I think there was two really like things that really stood out to me that helped influence my career. One was the sport business department. The amount of presentations that we were forced to do, which at the time, like again, you spend a month trying to study the island of Fiji for your international sport class. Like it's not, you don't feel like it's going to pay off at all, but it does help, and it gave me a leg up when I started my career in Tampa in hockey. So I think that helped prepare me. And then the sports information office. I mean, I worked for 4 years there, day and night, being paid in chicken sandwiches for part of the time, and just the interaction. I mean, Mount is a different level than a normal D3 school, so I was able to have some interaction with ESPN. You know, the notoriety, the press guy, all those things were a little more important than maybe at some other school. And I got to meet great people. I mean, the relationships that I have from either friends or through faculty and Dr. Kadlicek has been fantastic.
Very cool. Yeah, you know, that's one of the things I always kind of talk about too, is just all the opportunities we have at Mount Union here when I'm talking to my friends from back home even. And I'm super grateful for them as well. But you mentioned you went to Tampa first coming out of Mount Union. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier when you went through your speech, but can you tell us about your career path and the steps you kind of took to get to where you are today? Yeah,
so I definitely took the road less traveled. Right? I mean, a lot of people think they go to school here and then they're going to work for the Cavs or a local team. My first job in professional sports was in Tampa with the Tampa Bay Lightning, worst team in NHL history I think at the time. We were terrible, but that really forced me to get out of my comfort zone and really forced me to learn how to sell and be really creative. I sold there. I was a selling manager. I was a director of department. Had a lot of success. Took a job in minor league baseball, which is again a very non-traditional path. People would think once you're in major league sports, why would you get into minor league baseball? I wanted to widen my resume. I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. I wanted to work for really great people. So I worked for a AA team in Frisco, Texas. But it wasn't your typical AA team. We had 20 salespeople that were full time. We had $250,000 outfield wall signs. So we were really like a major league team in a minor league stadium in some ways. Left there as the COO, went to the Arizona Diamondbacks in Major League Baseball, and I was a VP of sales there. Built their whole sales team basically from scratch. Had a number of organization records there. Left and went back to Dallas. It's time for the Cowboys, a much bigger brand than the Frisco Rough Riders in that market. And for the first time in my career, worked for what's arguably the biggest brand in sports. Spent under a year there, and then a mentor of mine hired me back in San Diego. And I went to the San Diego Padres, got back into baseball, moved my family again, which was a challenge. But we became the SVP of Biz Ops for the San Diego Padres, I think at the age of 32. Oversaw everything from operations to marketing to sponsorships, tickets, suites, non-baseball events. And then took the job in Cleveland. Did not think I was going to leave San Diego. Thought I'd be there a long time. When you're 3 blocks from the beach in La Jolla, you don't want to leave. Your family's moved a ton. You work for a mentor, a great person, and even better boss, and a great friend. The only opportunity I would have left for was the Browns, but we had to be able to turn things around because the opportunity to turn the business around was too fantastic. So I've spent the last 3 years as our EVP and Chief Revenue Officer, and have built the business team, turned around sponsorships, tickets, concessions, and e-commerce.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to just talk a little bit about your time with the Browns now and just kind of praise you a little bit here. Can you talk a little bit about all you've accomplished with the Browns since then? I mean, just the complete turnaround you've had with that team is it blows my mind personally. Yeah,
so I mean, I don't like doing this.
I'm
Dr. Kadlicek knows that too. But we inherited a group that just had we needed different people. We needed different processes in place. It wasn't necessarily better, just very different in how I wanted to set up our side of the business. And the most important thing we did was hire people, and hire really strong people, give them resources. So hired great diverse backgrounds from baseball, hockey, minor league hockey, basketball, brought them in to help reshape our business. On the corporate partnership side, like I said in that meeting, it's like turning around a cruise ship in the lake. I mean, it takes a long time incubation period to get that thing turned around. So it took us about a year where we had to walk away from some bad deals and go find some bigger ones. And we're number 2 in the NFL since 2011 in corporate partnership revenue and growth, only behind the 49ers, and they've got a few advantages we don't have. And then on the ticket side, we've grown, I think, 40% in revenue since 2012. I've added 1,000 premium seats, undergone a $125 million stadium renovation, completely reinvented the food and beverage experience at our stadium. So when you come to our stadium, it's a local Cleveland chef experience. It's not, the First and 10 Cafe. I mean, it's a stand by Michael Simon, and you know what you're going to get there, and you actually come for the food versus using it as a deterrent. So we've had a ton of accomplishments, but nothing matters. None of this matters until we win.
Yeah.
But on the business side, I can't control that. So we want to be, what we talk about is like being playoff ready, being 10-win ready. So when we do win 10 games, we're ready to take advantage of that opportunity.
Definitely. Well, that sounds really great. As you said, just a huge, complete turnaround in Cleveland Browns. Obviously, a huge success for you. Something I want to talk about, though, is you've worked in a lot of different sports. And, you've worked in the NFL, you've worked in the NHL, you've worked in Major League Baseball, minor league baseball. Can you just kind of talk about a little bit about the differences between them? I mean, I know to a degree they're relatively similar, but obviously only working 10 games a year with the Browns has to be very different from working in San Diego and working, your entire summer.
Yeah, so on the personal side, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
Having 10 home games versus 81. I mean, there was a good stretch there where, you'd go 4 or 5 days without seeing your family because you're up and gone before they're out of bed, and you're home after they're already sleeping. I think the biggest differences between all these jobs really just like the market size and the focus on football. So in San Diego, we couldn't get into the news enough that we would call into the radio station and try to get them to talk about the Padres. We won 90 games the first year I was there. We still couldn't get people to come out to the games as much. Now in Cleveland, we can't get out of the news, right? So there's no matter what we do, we sign a guy to our practice squad on the first day of baseball season, it'll be on the front page of the sports.
Yeah.
And it's in some ways could be really, really great. In some ways could be really bad because you're always in the news. So those are definitely the biggest differences. And the NFL and just it's a 800-pound gorilla. It is so big. So everything we do is scrutinized. It's followed. The draft, the combine, everything we do. But it also gives us opportunity to tell our story and really make an impact for our partners.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, that has to give you such great opportunities to work, and these partners know they're going to get such great exposure whenever they're interacting with the Cleveland Browns. So that has to be a great advantage for you. One of the things I was a little curious about was you talked about working in Frisco with the Rough Riders and how it was sort of a different world for a AA team. Just how big you were just for a minor league baseball team in general, especially at that level. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about just kind of the culture there. And I know, because I worked in minor league baseball as well, I know that our general manager would be doing the tarp pulls with us sometime. So was it sort of like that environment there in Frisco as well, or was it more similar to a major league team?
The way we always talked about it was the only difference between us and the Texas Rangers was the guys between the white lines.
Okay.
Right? So everything else should be done the same. So when I started, we had 6 salespeople. We grew to 20. Those sales and service reps, they should be running up and down the aisles during the games, meeting customers, meeting prospects, selling tickets, renewing suites, doing all those things. I didn't want them worried about grilling the chicken sandwiches for the group sales party deck. So we made an investment there, and it was very different than most AA teams had 15 total full-time employees, and we had 40. So there may have been days where the rain was really bad, where we had to pull tarp during the day, but rarely. So it just wasn't a focus of ours because we were so focused on the business. So really, from a sponsorship angle, we were set up like a major league team.
Okay.
From a ticket side, we were set up like a major league team. We had 1,500 tickets that are $35 to $50 a game. Most AA teams don't have that. So In some ways, like, we didn't have to do those things, and but we were so focused on the business that it really didn't allow us to.
Very cool. So I look at somebody like you who came into the Arizona Diamondbacks and kind of created that sales force, or I look at Wes Warren now with the Milwaukee Bucks, how he's kind of doing the same thing. That's something that I think I would love the opportunity to do at some point. Can you kind of talk me? I know I'm sure it's a huge process, but can you kind of talk about what the process is for you when you're coming into an organization and just kind of building it from the ground up again?
Yeah, so I mentioned this in the presentation that if I took apart this car and I told you to put it back together, you'd have no clue. If you took it apart yourself and put it back together, you'd have a better idea. If you do it 6 times in a row, you're much easier to do that. Well, that's kind of how it is for me now. It's much easier for me to go in and assess. And I think that's the first thing, is like assess what you have, because there are some really good people that are talented. They can grow internally. You don't always have to get rid of just everyone. We've got some great staff. Actually, a Mount grad, Bridget Uzika, who oversees our partnership activation team, and she's grown into that role. She's fantastic. And had we just brought someone in when I came in, we would have not seen the opportunity for her. So I think the first thing you really have to do is assess. But I've learned to assess pretty quickly now because I've gone through it so much. So I think the one thing I learned is the longer you wait at each stop, time doesn't help. Like, once you know, you just got to make a decision and move. So hiring really good people and putting in really good processes in place, it sounds really simple, but like those are the 2 keys. Like, you have good people, good processes, good resources, everything else should take care of itself. Obviously there's a lot more hard work involved, but assessing the people and then putting those processes in place are the 2 most important things.
Very cool. So you talked about assessing these people. Talk about the culture a little bit of the Cleveland Browns and just all the organizations you've been with. You know, one of the things that everybody seems to stress to me is how important a culture is in any organization, whether it be a college, whether it be, a restaurant or a sports team. Mm-hmm. How important is the culture to the Cleveland Browns, and what's sort of the culture you try to develop wherever you go? Yeah,
so the culture at the Browns, it's interesting because you've probably like the media stories. It's the narrative, right? So it's the signal and the noise, and it's more noise than anything else. For us, it was really important to get my staff involved and near the rest of the staff. So when I started, my staff's at the stadium, the rest of the staff's at the practice facility. There's definitely silos there. How do you get them together? The owner, Jimmy and Dee, made a $5 million commitment to renovate our practice facility to get my whole staff to Berea. And one of the things we looked at is like, let's make sure we don't create silos here. So we don't want to wall off an area and have football ops over here and then business everywhere else. We tried to integrate them as much as possible so they could be part of it too. And they saw the hustle and they saw the grind and the hard work that went into getting that stadium full and getting those sponsors sold every day. So the culture we've created on the sales side, which I think has infected the rest of the organization, is one of like, we work in a really fun industry, so it should be fun. But at the same, so we'll celebrate our successes, but we work really, really hard. So no matter what place I've been in sports, like, work ethic has been like the number one thing that has led to people's success. So we work hard, we have a lot of fun doing it, and then what I found in this last stop is this communication. So how we communicate to our staff. So the entry-level coordinator all the way up to the vice president of ticket sales feels like they're a part of something bigger, or feels like they know what's going on, and they feel like they're part of the decision-making process. That helps really create a great culture amongst your staff.
Definitely. So looking back at one of your earlier positions, when you were with the Dallas Cowboys, you talked in the presentation a little bit about how Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, he really pushed the tours of the stadium and how that was sort of a huge innovation. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Jerry, I think he cares about winning Super Bowls first, and I think stadium tours second. There's nothing else he cares about. And you can ask Chad Estes, you can ask anyone there. He is so focused on these tours, and he's a great promoter, and it is an amazing venue. But how many people in this world would have thought, like, hey, we could sell stadium tours and get thousands of people to come in every year just to view the stadium and stand on the star and take a picture? He's a visionary. So he definitely was the impetus behind like how important this is. Even to Chad and I were like, all right, you really want to be aggressive here, so we can do that if you want to. And he definitely did. I mean, they're pretty aggressive in almost everything they do down there. But for me, that was an awesome experience. Of like, I was used to pushing the envelope, and I thought I was pushing it. And he reminded me, you know, subliminally, that I'm not pushing hard enough sometimes, and I'm not pushing far enough. When I know that, hey, we could have 10 people sell instead of 4, I should push for that versus just sitting back and trying to be more content.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. You know, you mentioned about how he pushed you sort of, and this is a question I've asked you before as well, but you've had a number of great mentors along the way, and just how vital do you think they've been to your success, and even, you know, professors that you've had here at Mount Union, like Dr. K and Dr. T?
Terrible.
Yeah.
No, so I mentioned this a little bit at our lunch. I don't accomplish anything. None of this is possible without the people that worked for me. I've had great staffs, great people that have worked really hard and made a ton of sacrifices, and then I've had great mentors at every step of the way. And part of it was what I sought out, which is part of my advice to you guys, like, find these people. Sometimes it's not that easy, though. You just need to get the job. You need to get your foot in the door. And I got a little lucky working for Chad in Tampa. So, like, having these mentors, like, I learn from them every day, but they're there, and it was up to me to, like, extract that knowledge and spend the time and learn and grow and produce the results that allowed me to learn more from them and give me that opportunity. So, again, I'm not here today without my staff and those people. And truth be told, like, I don't take that job in Tampa without Dr. Kadlicek. I don't take that job because I don't know it's available. Like, the teamwork online wasn't online back then. Like, it was just, I faxed my resume down there. Like, relationships matter, and I built a relationship enough, and I raised my hand and said, I'll be willing to leave and move anywhere when he asked. So I think that kind of stuck with him.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, very humble. It's very humble of you to say that, just that this success has come from your mentors and the people around you as well. I just want to talk a bit about, you know, when you first got down to Tampa, it was not easy for you. I mean, it was sort of a culture shock, just really coming from up here, going down to Florida and selling hockey in, you know, the warmest state in America. So can you just talk a little bit about the almost the struggle you had to kind of go through to get out of your comfort zone to get to where you want to be today?
Yeah. Again, like, it's looking back, it's funny, these things, like, they all have helped, been a piece of, like, where I am today. It was really hard. I mean, I'd never seen a hockey match. I joked that the only thing I knew about hockey was how to make a guy's head bleed in psychogenesis. Like, truly, like, I played the video games, that was it. I hadn't seen high school hockey, anything. And just went down there, and you're out of your comfort zone. You don't know anyone. You've never done it before. You've got a really good boss. You've got really good people around you, but you don't know anyone. So you're just kind of thrown into this opportunity to learn. And I took it as an opportunity, like, day and night. Like, I would be more prepared than everyone else. So 7 a.m. every day, like, I was ready to go. And I wasn't the first person in the office. I mean, the work ethic there really helped push me. But there were some dark days where you're working so hard, you're like, man, is this worth it? Is it worth it? Knowing it'll all pay off. And that's when your support system takes place. That's when you can call on your former professor and say, like, hey, like, remind me why I'm going through, like, we're in a 10-game losing streak. Like, remind me why I'm doing this. But, like, yeah, like, I wouldn't change that for anything. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to go. I wouldn't be where I'm at today had I gone and worked for a really successful team that didn't need help selling tickets. Because I was forced to do these things in order to survive. Like, you make $18,000 a year. You want to have your apartment. You want to make your car payment. Like, you have to sell. So some of it was out of, like, fear of failure. I don't want to come back 2 months later and be like, man, I failed. And part of it was, like, out of necessity. Like, you had to figure out a way to be successful.
Definitely. You know, I personally think that struggle really helps you grow a lot, so I'm sure that helped you as well. Now, conversely, complete opposite direction, what would you consider your biggest success? This is a question from our audience as well.
Have you met my wife?
Well, there you go. Good answer.
Definitely figuring out a way to convince Molly to marry me. My biggest success, on the business side, it's funny because it wouldn't be something that, like, I think stands out to most people. The amount of my employees, former employees, my alumni that have grown into these other positions, like, to me, like, I find way more success in that than being number 2 in the league in sponsorship growth. Okay. Having great connections with Jeremy Walls in Miami, and Jared Dillon in Tampa, and Tyler Epp in Kansas City, and all these former employees that move on to bigger and better positions. And have stayed in touch, and I know I was just a small piece of helping them do that. Like, that is the most rewarding and biggest accomplishment for me. Like, I've got a great group. I sent a note out. I'm like, hey, tell me, like, what are some things that helped you be successful in ticket sales? I got 20 responses back, like, in 5 minutes. And it's just a great network of people, and I couldn't be prouder of that group. So that probably is like what I'm most proud of on the business side.
That's awesome. Really looking out and giving back to the people behind you, sort of, too. Just you're taking pride in that really shows who you are as a person. So that's great. A question, you mentioned your wife, Molly. I just wanted to ask you a bit about your personal life, too. You
Sure thing.
mentioned before you have 4 kids, you're married. How difficult does that become to balance at times? I mean, you're obviously a very high executive in the sport industry, and it can't be easy to balance that.
Yeah, when you got 4 kids, if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry. So, or if you have more than 4 kids, as some people know, it's even tougher. You have to have a great support system. Like, my wife's the most patient, understanding, perfect person for me because I work a ton. And there's really no balance, no way to balance. And I think I talked about this a little bit. Like, I think when you start your career, there's benefits of imbalance. Mm-hmm. There's benefits of being laser focused on, this is all I want to achieve. At some point in life, you get married. At some point in life, you have kids. And now you're making a decision for a broader group. And I want to see my kids play that. Like, the best 30 minutes, 45 minutes of the week that I usually have is watching my kids at practice. Like, I go sit there, I don't say anything, I get to watch, I don't check my phone. And it's fantastic. You'd have to make time. Like, I don't really have hobbies. My hobbies are my job and my family. Like, I work, I spend time with my family, I don't golf, I don't do any of those things because I'm so focused on everything else. And if I take a quarter of my weekend away, that's a quarter of my weekend that I could be with my kids. So yeah, it's just sacrifices now because I'm so, and when I say work, it's when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like that. So I love being at work. I love my job. I love going on road trips. I love the dinners with clients. All this stuff's great. So it doesn't feel as much like, I got to go to work on a Saturday. Like, it feels good.
Good. Well, that's awesome.
We have time for one more question. Okay. So you're a leader now. Didn't start out that way. What advice would you give to current students or maybe even recent alums who are looking to go into leadership positions?
Yeah. So I think people they're probably leaders and don't even know it, right? So I would always act as if before I was there. So I was reading leadership books before I was in management because I felt like I learned something from those. And it wasn't just a Jeffrey Gitomer book on leadership. It could have been John Wooden or it could have been Mike Krzyzewski or someone like, there are great leaders and you can learn something from. And as just a salesperson, you can lead. Any person in the organization can lead. And we push that to our staff. Like, they are a conduit for us to all these fans. Every time they're at the grocery store and they have a Browns hat on, every time they're out and like, oh, you work for the Browns, they're out at a bar, like, they are considered a member of the organization. How high or how low they are, it doesn't matter. So I would expect that from everyone. I expect that from my whole group. So I would just challenge the students, like, act as if right now, like, act as if you're going to be the leader. And like, you want to learn and grow and be humble about it, but assume that you're going to be there because if you work hard enough, you can.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Brent. It was great getting to talk to you and having you back on campus. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. You too.
Thanks, guys.